Check out the nice thick bark on this brisket. Whether you're a beginner or not, watch how I achieve this. Plus, I will show you how to smoke a brisket from start to finish and end up with a nice bark like this. So let's get started. So we have this nice triple grade A beef brisket, and we're gonna trim it up. We're gonna take the pieces of fat off, remove most of all this fat, and then on the fat side, what we're going to do is we're going to trim this down to roughly 1/4 of an inch, and just do it the best you can. If you get into the meat, just stop and then start recutting and continue at 1/4 of an inch. Also, what we're going to do to trim it is we're going to go down along the edges and just cut the side off slightly to trim it up and shape it a bit better. So after you do cut the edge off and trim it a little bit, that's how you can tell. Like, you can see how thick the fat is there. That's how you can tell to get it to 1/4 of an inch. You take your knife and go along the side, and you can visually see what you're cutting and how thick it is. So this is a large chunk of fat on the other side. You don't want to remove it all because it goes down too far into the meat. You just want to take the top, probably about 1 inch off it, and just shape it so that all the juices run down off the meat and the fat. So do your best to get all the silver skin off, because that will allow the smoke to penetrate the meat better. So we got this trimmed up really nice, got all the silver skin off this. The fat trimmed so everything runs off nice and smooth in the meat. And then on this side, as you can see, we got it down to, well, it's maybe a little thick there, but it's mostly 1/4 of an inch. Look, I'll take a little bit off. And we're going to put pepper and salt and some spices, and that's going to render over time into the fat, and it's going to bind it together to create a really nice bark on top of this brisket. So after I'm done trimming the brisket, to help make this a thicker bark, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the knife and I'm going to do cross cuts down the fat, and I'm going to try to cross cut it down about 1/4 of an inch, that just before I hit the meat, and this will help make a thicker bark. I'm going to do it on the fat side, and I'm also going to do it on the meat side. That way the salt, the pepper, and the spices go into the meat just a little bit, and it, like I say, it will help create a better bark. Do a cross cut about every inch or so. With the thicker fat, I make the cross cuts deeper. On the meat side, I try not to penetrate the meat as deep as the fat side. Just nice light strokes across the meat. And there you have it. You can see, I get a little deep there, but your spices and salt's going to be able to penetrate that, and it's going to get the flavor inside a bit more. See that? Nice. So our next step is we're going to take mustard, and we're going to put a very light coat, and you're going to work it down into the cross cuts. This will help bind the salt and pepper and the spices that we put on this to the meat, and will help with the creation of the bark and the thickness and help it all bind together. So there we have a nice light coat of the mustard, and we're going to start with the pepper. And you're going to put a good amount of coarse pepper, and you're going to work it in. Coarse salt, and same thing, we're going to work it in. And then we're going to do this again with the pepper, and I have some Montreal steak spice that I'm going to add. Then we're going to refrigerate this for an hour, and then we're going to add some more salt and pepper and garlic. Montreal steak spice. There's some nice flavoring. Flip it over, do the other side. So get all 4 sides. So we have the first layer of spices on it. We got the pepper, the salt, Montreal steak spice. Any excess that's down along the bottom, take and just sprinkle over the top. Fill in all the gaps. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put this in a nice large bag. If you don't have a large enough bag to fit, you can lay out sheets of saran wrap and wrap it up nice and tight. And we're going to put it in the fridge and let it set up for an hour. And then we're going to put some more spices to it. We're going to do one more step before we get this in the smoker to create that nice thick bark. So you need a really large bag. So while the brisket is in the fridge, we're going to take a frying pan and we're going to put it on medium heat, and we're going to add butter. We're going to add oil. And grated garlic. And we're going to cook this on a medium heat for about 5 minutes. So the butter is almost completely melted. What we're going to do now is we're going to take coarse black pepper and we're going to add it to the garlic, butter, and oil. So this has been going on medium heat for about 5 minutes. What we are going to do is we're going to pour this in, I'm going to pour it in a measuring cup because then it will be easier to pour on the brisket later. And we're going to set that aside to cool. And the brisket has been in the fridge for an hour or a little bit more, so we're going to take that out and do the next step. Okay, so what I'm going to do with the brisket is I'm just going to rub it again and make sure that the spices get in between all the cuts as good as possible. It's binding together, you can tell. You're definitely going to have some that's going to come off, which is okay. Look at that. It's a lot of spices in that. It's going to taste beautiful and give a really, really nice thick bark. So the last thing we're going to do before we put this on the smoker is the mixture that we just did with the oil, the butter, and the pepper. Take a spoon, stir it up, and we're going to put this over the top, and then we're going to put it back in the fridge for half an hour, and then it's going so. Now I'm going to take onion powder and I'm going to dust the top of it before I put it back in the fridge. This helps dry it up a little bit and keeps the coating in place. So you put a very generous amount of onion powder on this. Now it's time to get the smoker up to temperature. So the brisket's ready to go in the smoker. The butter and the oil's firmed up. We'll put that in the smoker and it will all melt and go all over the brisket and help make a nice thick bark on this. So let's go put it in the smoker. The key to developing a nice bark on this is you don't want it to be too moist. So in this smoker you can add water to help the moisture in it. But I don't recommend doing that. What you want to do is you want to regulate. There's a fine line. You don't want it too dry and you don't want it too moist. So you just want it, when it dries out, we're going to spritz it a bit and moisten it up and then let it dry back out. So you want to meet that fine point. So let's go ahead and put it in. So we have the smoker set on 225 and we are going to cook this until the internal temperature reaches 160, 165, and then we're going to take it out and wrap it. But we will check on this occasionally and see how it's doing. The brisket has been on for 6 hours. It's cold out. We're in Nova Scotia. It's minus 14. So I actually have the smoker 20 degrees higher, and it actually has equaled out inside to a 220. I have a probe inside it, so right now we're at 150. It probably has a few more hours to go, but what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at it. I do believe it's getting a little dry, so we're going to give it a spray of, I have orange juice and soy sauce. A lot of people just use apple cider vinegar. I'm going to use that, and then after I spray it, I have a brown sugar mixture that will help with the bark, and this is a spice that I mixed together, and I will put the ingredients in the description. So let's check it out. Oh, it's looking good. Looking good. Yeah, the bark's forming. It's not too dry. Give it a little spray on the top. Moisten it. Then we're going to give it a good dose of this brown sugar and spice mixture. So it's late in the night. I decided to let the brisket go longer. It is actually up to 175, which isn't bad because if you wrap it a bit later, the bark gets more crispy and it develops better. So we're now at 175. It's in there for close to 10 hours. We're going to take it out and we're going to wrap it in butcher paper. Brisket's ready to be wrapped. I rendered down the fat that I cut off it and made a bit of tallow. If you don't have that, you can just use some butter just to add a little bit of moisture. Look at that. That's the bottom. Here's the fat cap. Put that down like that. We're just going to pour a little bit over the top. Look at that soak in, especially to the dry spots. Bring this up over. Take your time. It can seem like a bit, but this isn't that hard. You just fold the pieces down, and then you fold it in over, crease it, get kind of a straight line. Do is wrap it, have the fat side down. Two wraps is all you need. Scissors. Cut the excess off. I like to also wrap mine in tin foil. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I like this because what it does is it catches the juices that runs out of it, and then I use that for a cowboy butter, which is completely delicious. So, put these diagonal, and then I just wrap it up around. Wrap it a bit better. Big, it's a 20 pounder, so it's a little bit bigger than normal. So let's put this back in the smoker, and we're going to bring this until the internal temperature is at 203. So the brisket is finally done. It's been 22 hours. It's a large brisket and it's very cold out. So the next step is I'm going to let this cool down to 140. We're going to unwrap it, take a look at it, and then we're going to put it in the oven and slowly cool it down for 4 hours, and then we're going to cut it. So I will see you when we're ready to unwrap this and take a look at it. So it's finally time to unwrap this beautiful brisket. Let's see what it looks like. Oh yeah. Looks nice, smells nice. That looks nice. Transferred over on this. Oh, it's ready to fall apart. Beautiful. Oh, a little piece fell off. Wow. Okay. That has some really nice taste, but we're gonna cut it apart. See how thick that bark is, see how it made out. And then we'll taste test it. So yeah, we're gonna put this in the oven and we're gonna let this slowly cool down in there with no temperature on in the oven. Just the heat itself will create enough heat inside the oven to slow it down, and we'll cut it in about 4 hours. So it's time to cut the brisket, see what it looks like, and you know what you have to do now. You gotta hit the subscribe button and check out my Wagyu brisket that I'm gonna put on the end screen. So I'm gonna cut it right down the center to separate it, and then I had a few deeper cuts on the meat side, so I'll make a cut here and we'll check that out and see how the bark looks. Now it looks pretty good. So you can see, give it a little squeeze. I've been setting for 5 hours. It's definitely nice and juicy. Look at a nice thick bark on it. Looks very good. Here's the other side. Oh, it's cooled down a lot too, but check that out. Still nice and juicy even though it's cooled down a lot. We're gonna make another cut down in here. Oh yeah, you can see I went down in there, but I'll show you to you better. See, I went down there. You can see the spices all got in there and everything. Knife nice and clean to try to get a nice slice. Okay. Get some of that bark there, so I'm gonna try this top piece. Very good. The meat's thick enough. The bark, the thick bark, just flavors it nicely. You know, I like them done a lot of different ways, but I like a bit of spice that way. It's not so bland. You still got the meat taste, but yet you get that beautiful pepper, salt, and the garlic taste is there too. Very delicious. Try it out. I hope you hit the subscribe, enjoyed the video. Have a great day.